Richardson. I moved here a couple years ago to do my master's in environmental education and started studying U.S. trade policy and the environmental provisions within it, and realized that we're going to vote for a new trade agreement into Peru that's similar to the North American Free Trade Agreement. And in that, corporations will have the rights to sue governments. There's provisions within those trade policies. And I just found out that in the Amazon in Peru, there is an increase from 13% zoned for big oil to 70% of the Amazon now is actually zoned for big oil. And I'm concerned about trade agreements going into countries. And I want to refer back to what you said, where we don't need to be going into other countries to drill. And so I just wanted to ask, in regards to environmental policy and trade policy, do you think it's right that we give corporations the right to sue governments? And the concern I have is that when the people in Peru try to change their laws, that the big oil industries, through these trade agreements, can sue them directly for their environmental protection laws.
Yeah, I'm not for that trade agreement. I want you to know, full disclosure, young lady, don't walk away, because you need to know. I'm not for the Peru trade agreement. I'm not for it. But I was the Democratic Whip, and I did vote for NAFTA. Now, I voted for NAFTA because it had environmental side agreements that the border would be clean, that there would be job protection, and that it would reduce immigration. It didn't happen because it wasn't in the bill. It was a side agreement. So I learned, as president, I would not have any trade agreement unless the following standards were part of it. One, adherence by the other country to international labor standards, no child labor, no slave labor, collective bargaining, freedom of association, environmental protection, you're right, air quality, provisions that involve wage parity. That's a difficult one, because you can't say, okay, Peru, you got to pay the U.S. minimum wage. But there's got to be some kind of graduated scale, because otherwise, we also have provisions in our trade laws that give a company a tax credit if it goes overseas in certain sectors. It's called the runaway tax credit. It costs the Treasury about $3 billion a year. So we have to change that. I didn't know that provision about, you mean like a company can sue the U.S. government and we fund it?
In all trade agreements, including the North American Free Trade Agreement, there's something called the investor state provision, and it allows corporations to directly sue governments for the future lost profits that they might have made. And so the concern I had was this provision was continued in the Peru trade agreement. And what it would allow is when people try to change their laws, if their government has already made a contract and they're realizing that there's an environmental consequence to that contract, and they try to change their laws, then the corporation can sue, and that's in all trade agreements.
Okay. All right. Well, that doesn't strike me as terribly, what's the word?
Smart?
Progressive. Smart. Go ahead. How's your